Hey everyone, welcome to my show, Sheriff Gun's Cricket Show. It's been a very long time since we have been in touch, and I wanted to start again, get active on YouTube again. Well, today's topic is the 100, England's cricket's newest invention. Basically, you have two sets of men and women team uh, uh, from a particular city, like the city of London has a men's team and a women's team. The city of Birmingham has a men's team and a women's team, yada yada. And one day the men's play the other men's teams, and the other day the women's team plays the other women's team. So in that set, it's no different than how cricket is played, where the men play with other men in a team of exclusively men, and the women play with other women in a team of exclusively women. However, there has been some marked departures, not just from the cricketing arena, but from larger society as well, which follow certain trends across the larger society too. So this is not just about cricket, really. It's what's happening in cricket is a small example of what's happening in the larger world. Primarily, what's happening is both of these the matches, the format that in which it differs is instead of having 20 overs, an over constitutes 6 balls, so 20 times 6, 120 balls. You have 100 balls. Okay, so no over. But there kind of is an over, like the over ends at the 5th ball, and a bowler can keep bowling till the 10th ball. So you could be bowling 2 consecutive overs, but they're not called overs. The words overs do not surface at all because you just have balls, 100 balls. Okay, five divided into sets of fives, which should really be overs. But anyways, we don't use that term. So that's one ingenious act. And the second one is, let me just make sure that I'm actually, I can be heard, because one of my issues is my speaker doesn't work. So if that's the case, we'll have to redo this whole thing. So yeah, let's just see if this thing is even, makes any sound. So yeah, let's just see if this thing is even. Oh, it does makes work. Any sound. So yeah, let's just see if this thing is even. Oh, it does makes work. Any sound. So yeah. All right. I guess we're good. Sorry, the microphone sometimes has issues. Okay, so that's one of the big differences. Okay, the word over has disappeared from the game of cricket when you're watching the 100. Another thing that's disappeared is gender. So oftentimes when you talk about gender, there are two different kinds of genders most people are very accustomed to, although they are not the only genders, but we usually talk about gender in terms of man and a woman, boy or girl. Okay, can't use those terms in the 100. Because one particular cricketing word that uses a gender term is batsman or batswoman. Okay, well, we don't use those terms in the 100. Instead, we say batter, 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 batter. Okay, this comes from baseball, American baseball. So the batter is in both the games that are being played exclusively by women. We don't say that. We don't mention that they're just a group of women, as well as batter going on in the teams that are exclusively of men. Again, we don't bring that up. We never bring up the fact that these teams are constituted exclusively of men and women. But we do say that, look, we don't do gender. There is no gender. Man, women, no. We're not into those divisions, those differences at all. Everybody is a batter. That's equity, okay? Now, what's so fascinating is gender is being allegedly empowered. There's a sense in which women are being empowered, or a certain kind of gendered hierarchy is being quashed and broken down, and people are being balanced into equal categories, and stuff like that is happening through the erasure of gender altogether. Okay, so we're going to create gender equity by busting the word gender altogether, making that word superfluous and irrelevant and meaningless. Okay, by eradicating gender, we're creating gender equity, according to this logic of liberalism here. And what ends up happening is this really stupid reality where gender is very much being reinforced, because the London sky that is being captained by Owen Morgan, who is a man, is led by a man and played by other men like Mohammad Amir and Ravi Bopara and Zach Crawley. They're all men, and coached by a guy named Shane Warne. Hey, that's another man. So those are all men. And then I don't know who the women players are playing for the London Sky. Not because I don't follow women's cricket. That's not the reason why. I haven't really followed it that much. But again, like that raises the other question. Okay, why am I not following the women's game? Well, how many of you are following the women's game? I mean, most of you are just kind of like cricket followers and just like to watch cricket don't you just tune in for the men's games? Are you really watching the women's game? I don't think you are. Now, I would be watching them like nobody's business if they had a mixture of men's and women's player. Imagine if they're the best women's player and the best men's player playing for the London Skies A team, competing against the best women player and the best men's player in the Birmingham team, and then the another half of another list of men's player and women's player, again mixed, playing in a B team. That would be fascinating. That would be absolutely fascinating. So like 5 and 6 make a combination, or 6 and 5, I don't care either way. That would be really interesting, right? Because you would see the power of men's game alongside the finesse of women's game, alongside you will see the strengths and weaknesses on both kinds of games. Women's game strengths are discipline. They ball with good line and length. They don't bowl too many erratic deliveries, and their batters are so technically skilled. They play a cover drive the way a cover drive is supposed to be played. They sweep the ball the way it's supposed to be played. They make a better example for coaches to teaching young kids, how do you play a drive, how do you cut the ball. And especially the wicket keepers, like Amy Jones is a fabulous wicket keeper. I don't know any men's keeper who is as good right now as Amy Jones, and it oftentimes is the case because the girl she replaced, who used to be the women's keeper before Amy came into the fray for the England's women's team. And what's her name? I'm forgetting already. I'm forgetting, sorry. But she was damn good too. But yeah, Freya Davis is a really good women's bowler. We have Ecclestone, Sophie Ecclestone. She's a fabulous left arm spinner with a really wicked arm ball that it's really hard to discern. I think Ecclestone could bowl to Liam Livingstone and cause some trouble. Why not? Let's make them compete with each other. Let's see what happens. It'd be good for both of them. Liam Livingstone would probably improve his batting, and Ecclestone would learn a few more tricks about her bowling too. It would improve both sides of games, and it would be a way to include the game of cricket, broaden it, stretch it, make it appealing to everybody. Because nothing is more appealing than something where everybody has access to, that everyone can play, right? That's the point, right? That anybody can play cricket. Well, why can't the men and women play together? So basically the 100 is reinforcing the segregation gender segregation in cricket that is prevalent in other formats and competitions of cricket, like 50 over Test cricket or T20, regardless of what nation we're playing in. But what it does, it is participating in this liberal quest to create some kind of equity by destroying gender altogether. And so initially when I heard about it, there was a cricket journalist, who wrote an article in defense of the word batter. And it pissed me off really big time. And I wrote a lot of tweets in response to him, and he never responded to me. But basically, Mike, the problem I have with that, with this advocacy for batter as opposed to batsmen or batswomen, is that it assumes that segregation or discrimination happens in the realm of language. And in assuming so, in making language of such paramount importance as the linchpin where gender is being formed and hierarchies are being placed, what it does is it intentionally, I think, and this is not just some kind of a kind of suspicion, it's my claim, it intentionally, it's not a paranoid suspicion, it's a very confident claim. It intentionally obfuscates the fact that women earn less than men, and the fact that the game of women's cricket remains intentionally kept below the men's game, because women's game is not allowed to enhance itself by playing with the men's game, which would even allow the men's game to be enhanced as well. So why do I advocate for women to play with the men's? Well, the reason is simple. I think it will help both sides of the game, because the games, there are certain strengths and weaknesses on both sides. What's the major weakness of women's game? You don't have a gal who's bowling at 80 clicks or 85 clicks, right? That's the biggest weakness. They can. A woman could. She probably will one day. I mean, many people assume that a woman couldn't dunk a basketball for many decades, and then eventually a woman did dunk a basketball, same height as a man would with the rim, right? And so there's nothing that really naturally limits a woman from doing these athletic feats. So women could bowl 80 miles, 85, even 90 even. I mean, what do you need to bowl that fast? You need to be lean and nimble and have a really strong hamstring and back and shoulders. I mean, women can have all of those things. I mean, women are fabulous swimmers. If you're a fabulous swimmer, you're going to build all those muscles that are required for a fast bowler. Now, if you have a fabulous swimmer who's bowling fast since she was like 6, 7 years of age, I think by the time she's 18, she would be able to bowl 87 to 90 clicks. Why not? She probably could. I think she would. Not that probably. I believe she could, right? But you don't let the women's game develop by keeping them not be able to play with the men's. Now there could be some religious, reservations, like in Muslim, certain Muslim women would, refrain from playing with men because it would make them feel uncomfortable. So the sense that like we've been coerced into playing with men, hey, that's fine. Um, but I mean, if you think about cricket, it's a non-contact sport. Nobody's touching you physically. Nobody's touching your groins or hamstrings or anything like that. It's a non-contact sport, so it really is even that a question of modesty and not having to be in close proximity to men who are not familial is not a problem at all. So again, why would the 100 fail? I don't think most people are going to make these arguments. I think most people are just upset that it seems to be doing nothing in addition to cricket other than just superseding and coming in place of the county game. Because the county game, and that's a fair critique too, because this critique is arguing that it's not like it's doing anything different. All right. What is the county game? The county game is they have a T20 blast in England where you have various counties like Surrey, Sussex, Hampshire, Middlesex, Yorkshire, etc. All of them have a men's team and a women's team. Okay, they all play the T20 match, and people come and watch these games. But allegedly, not enough people were coming to these games. So what they did is they decided to create the 100. You got a little flashy colors, green and red, and very disco kind of colors, and you're so simplifying the game because supposedly it's really difficult for people to know that 6 means an over, so 12 would mean 2 overs, 18 would mean 3 overs. It's like somehow we've forgotten arithmetic. We can't multiply 6 by numbers. It's like we just cannot compartmentalize numbers of balls into sets of 6 anymore. So we've gotten rid of that because it's so complicated. People will be confused. So instead, now there's 100 balls. And if actually, like as a cricket fan, it's more confusing to follow that because you think so much in terms of overs. Like I know a feeling of 6 overs at the end of the power play. We got 14 overs to go. 10 overs. How much do I want in 10 overs? I want to score. I don't want the run rate, required rate, to be more than 10 an over because you multiply by 6 in cricket all the time because we're so geared to do that. So all of a sudden now you have like 88 balls, 33 runs needed, and like it's like, wait a second, how much? Like, so we're closing 15th over. Like it's actually really confusing by dulling it down. So it's very patronizing to, I think, like people to assume that you cannot like actually understand what an over is. And I think it's also very disrespectful to women to say, look, we've created equity now. We're not going to use the word batsman anymore because see how biased it was? Because every time you heard the word batsman, you must have felt so discriminated against because it was so erasure to your everyday experience. Now we're going to say batter, 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 batter. As if that is not like has a history to it. It comes from freaking baseball. Okay, that's a different sport, which is actually played by men because there's another sport called softball, which is played by women. So it's not even like the game that they like are borrowing from without crediting that game somehow happens to have a rich history of women playing. Like it's a men's game. It's a super broy thing. Like go to a freaking dugout. There are dudes chewing like peanuts and chewing gums and like spitting at the Gatorade bottle, and like it's the most bro thing, like playing baseball. Go to any college cafeteria and sit next to the baseball team. That is the most bro section of the table in the cafeteria. Um, but we basically are too ashamed to affirm the fact that we have this game called cricket, and it has these a particular mathematics that it follows. We don't like it, and we have idealized psychology, and it's the sense that like language is the source of discrimination when actually discrimination happens by segregation. Discrimination happens by keeping the men and the women apart, which we see pernicious. because no matter how much they try to be so equitable, they always got to keep the women playing with the women, the men playing with the men. And they never offer an explanation for why they do that. Some might say, well, the men play better than the women. Look, they can hit 120-meter sixes. Really? Well, we got female golfers who can hit the ball farther than most men, that most a lot of men can, because they have really good technique. I believe that if a woman were to be facing 85 miles an hour kind of deliveries and middle the ball, that ball would go far because they're playing with the same bats as the men's game is. Every smart person who has played the game of cricket would know that batting is no different than like a tennis forehand. You need to have good technique. You need to be able to like have that fast wrist, and if you gotta have number strong but like flexible wrist. If it's too tight, this is not going to create a lot of force, but this little whip. If you have a whip in your shot and the ball puck hits the ball in the middle of the bat, the ball's going to go far. I don't care if the person's got boobies or not. I don't care if it's Emily or Tom hitting that ball, or Sophia or Moeen. The ball's going to go far. So that's just an excuse based on the fact that we do not actually create conditions for women to be able to hit the ball far, because they play on slow wickets, they play against really slow bowlers. And if the men were to play against those bowlers, they would struggle too. They would struggle to middle the ball and find gaps. I mean, these pitches on which the women's teams cricket play, they're pretty slow, and the bowling comes at a 70, 65 miles an hour. It's not easy to middle those balls. You have to generate the pace. You have to hit the ball in the gap. You have to have really precise technique to come down the track, hit the ball through the covers inside out against a left arm spinner bowling at 53 miles per hour. It's really hard work. It's really difficult to do that kind of stuff, to actually execute that shot. You can try it and get stumped, or like hit the ball to the cover fielder and top edge. You can do a lot of things and mess the, but to actually middle that ball and hit a four, like Smriti Mandhana does such a good job. I mean, she has got fabulous technique. Why can't she play? I think she could play against the men, and I think the men could learn a lot from her batting, and vice versa. I think the women could gain something from the men's game, a lot of the ramp shots, etc. Although they already are playing such strokes. So, but we keep gender segregated, while we have the audacity to claim, look, we have so much gender empowerment now, the 100, because see, we don't use batsmen or batswoman, we use batter. So it's a really stupid logic that is very much animated by a liberal tradition, of which psychology becomes a very important source of knowledge. And people idealize, people invest heavily in psychology. People really believe words matter, representation matters. And what's happening, ironically, is like you're not being represented. If you believe that to identify as a woman is a very important, meaningful thing for you, well, there is no woman in the 100. If you believe to identify as a man is a really important thing for you, there is no man in the 100, even though there are a bunch of men playing with a bunch of men and a bunch of women playing with a bunch of women. But don't bring that up. Don't bring that contradiction up. So anyways, I think the 100 will potentially could be the biggest failure of the English cricket system, which would be unfortunate, because England has this reputation of producing, inventing, reinventing cricket in ways that becomes really popular. Like the T20 game was invented in England around 2002 or 3, I think. And to those who say that to those who are upset at the 100 because they support the T20 blast, I'm with them too, because they are right. It's no different than the T20 blast. And so in that context, you're right. And then the second part, like T20 blast, people watch. I mean, if you were to make that available and make that streaming available, I mean, people love watching Hampshire versus Yorkshire. People love watching Surrey versus Middlesex across. I mean, not just in England. I have vivid memories of watching T20 cricket in the county game before the international cricketing league started to take a look at it and decided to like incorporate that into the international calendar. I remember those early years of T20 cricket, like 2003, 2002. I mean, it was amazing. It was so cool. It was so fun. It was so relaxed and it was enjoyable. There was no tension left to support this team or that team. There was no stress of like feeling like upset if our team lost. It was just a lot of fun. It was really cricket at its best. So to conclude, 100 might fail. The reason for that will be liberalism, would be this investment in psychology, this erasure of gender. But I don't think most people will point out those things. Most people will just be upset because it is no different than what we're doing elsewhere. But it is hijacking that and completely shunning all that stuff away and saying, look at me, I'm the new thing. But you're not new. You got nothing new about you. You're just pretend to be new. So that really becomes the reason why most people will argue the 100 is failing. But the actual reason the 100 is failing is because in claiming to be new, it is actually doing some new things, which I think are sorry and unfortunate. I think men, women are important, meaningful identities, very important for people around the world, for marginalized communities, Black motherhood, Latina motherhood, migrant women. These are important categories. You take those gender categories away, you're gonna have this cuckoo liberalism, and it's gonna fail. But nobody will mention that. Most people will just be upset at the logistics, at the other kind of factors. Nobody will call gender the 100 out for being a hypocritical league that is experimenting with gender equity and actually reinforcing gender segregation. Nobody will make those claims, but I think that is really underneath all of it is the reason why this potentially could fail. Again, I have an open attitude towards the 100. I'm gonna try to enjoy watching it. I didn't come in with a biased approach, but initially when I encountered the 100 was that article in defense of why we should use the word batter. And I was just fumed at it because as a historian, that's what I do. I'm an amateur cricket player. I'm pretty good at it, but not a professional level. Don't have the time to train like that. Uh, yeah, that's so true. Sita, you're absolutely right. I think that's the gist of the issue. Uh, and I think that my dog is barking right now as well. But you're absolutely right. I think the other important thing is the financial part. They're hurting. COVID happened. They lost so much revenues from all the games that they were supposed to play. And their consulting firm or somebody said, you know what, you need to be more inclusive to the people who don't play the game of cricket. We got to get out. We got to get away from these exclusive counties that are like have their county members, and the Surrey have their own members. And we got to get away from this elitist model, and we need to like really go grassroots. But the thing is, Sita, and you're 100% right, for me, if I were a consultant, I would say, well, how do we do that? Like, how are we going to go? Like, if you want to like make the game more popular in working class neighborhoods of Birmingham, ask Moeen Ali, ask Kabir Ali, ask like people who are actually from such neighborhoods, like, yo, how can we make the game more inclusive? And they will have some really important suggestions. I don't know if the 100 will be what they suggest, but there are other ways to do it, because what's happening here is you're taking a very Ivy Tower academic psychology animated, this whole batter is more progressive because batsmen and batswomen have these biases that is not based on any empirical data. I would love to know how many women came on a cricket field and their experience of discrimination was because they heard the word "you're batsman" and they said "batsmen," but I'm a woman. This is so discriminate. That's not how people feel discriminated on the cricket field. They do feel discriminated. That's not my point. They absolutely do, but that's not where discrimination has happened. Discrimination happens when you don't feel welcomed on the damn cricket field, and you're not welcome to play with other men, etc. So I think those are some of the places that. But you're 100% right. Absolutely, they need the money, but I don't know if they're going to get the money. This may actually fail because on Twitter, I don't see anybody saying this is great. I'm really loving the 100. This is so much fun. Most people are saying, why did you ruin the T20 Blast? Why did you destroy the T20 Blast? What's going on here? And George Dobell, who I love as a journalist, he's one of my favorite sports journalists on Cricinfo. I really enjoy his writing. He's my favorite journalist. Again, he wrote this really strong critique of the 100 by playing on the lyrics of Bob Dylan. You have a lot of nerve to claim to be my friend, and it starts with the kind of tribute to Bob Willis because he was listening to that song before he passed away, and ends by saying that the ECB has a lot of nerve for claiming that they're friends of the county game. So I think he's got a point. Like, I mean, right now the T20 Blast should be happening. I think it is still happening, or if it's not happening, I don't know what's going on. But this 100 literally was like, move out of the way, go. We're in this whole other thing. We got to stop it right now. And a lot of English fans are not excited about it. I also would wonder, like, what do you guys think about the graphics? Because seeing those like two pillars on both edges of the screen, the right and the left edges, with the balls going down, like 48 balls remaining, 77. It's really hard to actually watch the game because it makes the game like smaller in like width, and like you have to really kind of like focus on like the edges are so distracting, and it's hard to follow the scorecard as a person who follows this over. Like, I don't know what it means to score 130 and 100 balls. I don't know if that's a lot of runs, that's not enough runs. It's a strange feeling, but yeah. Yeah, see, I agree with you, Seta. Yeah, it's really like the graphics are like yesterday I kind of had a headache. I was like, I'm trying to watch Johnny Bairstow, and it's all this like this disco kind of like graphics on the sides. It's strange, and but it does say a lot about how they think the common man or woman is. Like, even the way they were promoting the 100, everybody was wearing jeans and t-shirts, and I was like, so that's how you think the common man dresses? Like, they wear a jean and a t-shirt? Interesting. Maybe they do. Maybe that's how the commoner dresses. But it was just so patronizing. Why can't you just put on the clothes you would rather, whatever it is, if you like wearing a suit or I don't know, shorts, but the jean, like, it was just like really like unimpressive, like Levi jeans everybody was wearing. So that's my thoughts about the 100. Well, thank you so much. I'm really surprised I have people watching and commenting. I'll try to become more active on my YouTube page. Again, I'm not a big name. I'm not a big cricketer or anything like that. I just enjoy my barhas, as they say in Urdu, like just let it out. We got things on my mind, pour it out rather than tweet, because tweeting takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to write. So I will hopefully be doing a show at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, United States Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern, for half an hour on cricket. Maz Ismail says ECB is just destroying cricket for their own benefits. Cricket less than 20 overs is just not cricket at all. I agree, man. I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, because the way I see this 100 is you basically are playing a T20 match that is reduced to 16.4 overs, and it's played by two sets of men and women teams. But we don't use the word overs, we don't use the word men, and we don't use the word women. That's basically this game. It's not like you're like changing, like you're making the captains really think about, what do I do? Yeah, fair enough. Like 10 balls, a person can bowl 10 consecutive balls. Like, that's the 2 overs now, really. Like, you're divided by 5. I mean, divide by 5, 2 overs. So doesn't really add much. It's not the field placements are all that different anymore. You're not really changing the geometry of the game. It's not adding anything new to the game. It's a 16.4 overs game, which is confusing because you don't use the word overs anymore. So you don't have the divided, the divisible. So yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. And I mean, Maz, it's interesting you said less than 20 overs not cricket at all. I kind of agree with you. I'm close. I'm from Quetta. I'm from Pakistan, Quetta. So yes, some Afghan looks potentially. Pashtun is my background. Maz, yes. I'm from Quetta, Pakistan. Never been to Afghanistan, but very close. 2 hours car ride to the Pishin border area from Afghanistan. So that's and Afghan is the name. No H in my name. It comes from Sher Afghan, the Mughal. The story goes he was he was a lover of Noor Jahan and Aurangzeb, stuff like that. It's basically a nickname given to this guy whose real name was something else, but close to Afghanistan. And nice guess. But talking about Afghanistan, maybe we should do another episode on the T20 World Cup tomorrow. Maz and Seta, you're more than welcome to join me again tomorrow, same time, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, this current time. It's now 3:29 p.m. And we can have a discussion about the T20 World Cup coming up and the chances of Afghanistan. Where do you see Afghanistan in comparison to the other big nations? They have some really highly skillful leg spinners. Rashid Khan, everybody knew about, but this new guy, Noor Hassan, or Noor something that we saw in the PSL, that kid was the Chinaman. He was really good too. So we'll do a little show on the T20 World Cup and where do I see these teams standing on that, and you guys can share your thoughts as well. So for now, thank you so much for your participation, for chatting with me. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun having you listen to me. I appreciate it. Thank you for chiming in, for being so engaging with me. And whatever thoughts you have about the 100, please do share with me. Hope it works. I hope the game of cricket grows, but I share your suspicions and your critiques. I do think that it is disrespectful to the county game. I think if BBC or Sky Sports was to say, look, let's just make the county game, let's just invest heavily on that. Let's make it possible people to be able to view that. I think people would. I don't know about you guys. I used to watch the T20 before international T20 started, like 2003, 2004. I used to watch it. It was so fun. It was just really fun watching, like, the commentators were sitting right across the boundary line, and that just kind of relaxed, informal atmosphere and the fun atmosphere. So, anyways, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good one. Thank you, Maz and Sita Roy. I really appreciate you guys joining this chat. Bye bye for now.